It was the sudden appearance of a warp storm at the Kaurava system's outer edge that first caught the attention of the Imperium, and not just the Imperium. After hundreds of years under the neglectful watch of the Imperial Guard, nearly every force in the galaxy would descend upon the planet of Kaurava, bent only on domination and victory. 3 races had long dwelled in there. The Imperial Guard, its supposed rulers, the Orc tribes of Kaurava II, which the Guard had never successfully put down, and the Necron, who had slept undisturbed for untold millennia beneath Kaurava III. Where the Chaos Marines came from, or how, none can say. Did the Warp Storm bring them, or did they bring the Warp Storm? Both appeared suddenly on Kaurava IV, and in an eye blink, half the system's Imperial forces were gone, killed or claimed by the madness of chaos. In quick succession, the others flocked to Kaurava. The Space Marines, the Imperium's super soldiers, descended on Kaurava II, planning to finally cleanse the system, both of the troublesome Orcs and the Chaos Marines, the sworn mortal enemies. The DOW appeared next, not far above, on one of the planet's moons. In the interests of protecting its ordered empire from the effects of human folly, the DOW came seeking to contain the Warp Storm, and in so doing, expand the territory's border. On their moon, they built a mighty fortress, and there forged a space cannon capable of interplanetary devastation. Among the wastes of Kaurava III, the Necrons, perhaps awakened by the disruptive forces of the Warp Storm, slowly massed their lethal legions. In quick response, webway gates, long unused, flickered to life, and Eldar poured forth, ready to battle their dark, death-dealing adversaries. Meanwhile, in the shadow of an ancient portal gate, the Dark Eldar slipped stealthily out of the murky depths of the webway. They would be like carrion birds, flying above the battlefield, and when all were weary from the fight, make the battlefield into a feasting ground. Last to arrive, and perhaps most to be feared, were the Sisters of Battle, holy maidens and bearers of the God Emperor's faith. They had come to cleanse the system of corruption and filth. Their faith left them fanatical, unafraid of death and solace in their cause. Nothing here was clean. All must be purged. Now, war rages anew, and only the victorious may write their history. Only the victorious will claim the planets of Kaurava. Little was ever uncovered, and little will ever be known of how the Warp Storm was unleashed on the Kaurava system's 4th habitable planet. Whether guardsmen there grew corrupt and turned to evil worship, or whether the storm took them unawares, is an open question. What is without doubt is that at the storm's eye lay the lair of the Chaos Space Marines. And at the heart of this lair a network of unholy and blood-stained shrines, linked somehow inextricably to the storm itself. Although the lethal warp storm would flicker and squall here and there, ever shifting, a permanent conduit to the warp was maintained between these shrines. A charged field of immateria whirled there, certain death to any who had not given themselves over fully to chaos. In that radiant, deadly energy field, strange shapes could be seen dancing, screaming, howling. Any would-be conqueror of this unholy citadel would somehow have to dispel the chaos field that protected it. To enter it would be certain death, and while it stood, nothing could reach the forces of chaos that lurked at its center.
They come!
They come!
Yes, we feel them! They approach! Their blood shall flow at our feet! Blood for the blood god! Yes! We shall slake our thirst for death! For chaos! For terror! Yes!
They draw near. Let them come. The very ground will poison you. Demons will appear from the warp when your back is turned. We shall lash out from every direction, and yours shall be the cries of death and horror. The sound of your doom will ring in your skull, in your soul. You shall tremble, and your blood shall be a gift to the blood god. Let them come. We are ready. No! We cannot lose! We cannot die! How can we?
Without a devotion, without a sacrifice.
Oh, the horrid blossom of chaos will wither! We'll die! This world is slipping from our grasp. Die!
Feel their insides on the ground!
When the Dark Eldar first arrived in the Karava system, they had been happy to conduct the raiding parties against the Alpha Legion as often as any of the other warring forces within their grasp. However, the Chaos Space Marines' position directly below their moon-based stronghold was simply growing to be too great a threat. Archon Terrell took all but 2 leaders as fools in the Karava conflict, Farseer Keris and Lord Charon. These 2 alone might know where in the shadows to look for his fleets of raiders and ravagers. As the Dark Eldar power grew great, Lord Terrell saw his chance and decided to wipe the Alpha Legions from the system. With ruthless speed and efficiency, his savage forces descended upon the peninsula of Isolt. The savageries and abominations of chaos, rather than dismaying them, merely whetted their appetites for slaughter and mayhem. Although the Alpha Legion fought heroically, they were overwhelmed and outmaneuvered. The Blackheart Cabal raiders took cultists and wounded Chaos Space Marines by the hundreds, dividing their spoils between tribute to their masters and use in a great feast of souls to follow the victory. The vast Tau military complex on Karava II's second moon had always been intended for purposes above and beyond the current war. In a Tau-dominated solar system, this complex would become a key outpost on the Empire's border. This moon base had been named Nan Yanoi, or Sword Moon, referring to the powerful Arca cannon built there. This weapon could fire its devastating ion beam on any territory of any planet in the system. Heavy fortifications and anti-aircraft arrays were not enough for the Earth-cast architects of Nan Yanoi. To these, they added an ambitious orbital perimeter defense system, which would fire ion beams similar to that of the Arca cannon, tuned to harm only intruders and spare Nan Yanoi's infrastructure from any damage. When complete, Nan Yanoi would be unassailable. Unfortunately, the Tau stronghold was attacked before it was complete. Many systems and fortifications were not yet fully operational, including the perimeter defense system. An invasion fleet could be shot down, but they could not as easily protect against a small force from making a beachhead at one of the gaps in the Tau's outer defenses. Such a feat would be extraordinarily difficult, but it might just be possible.
We welcome your gracious presence, Aun Royu. I see that our Earthcast engineers have made splendid progress in constructing the Nan Yanoi base station. Yes, Your Eminence, it is nearly complete. There are only a few gaps remaining in our perimeter defenses, and they are heavily guarded until our orbital defense system is fully operational.
Setting stabilizers. Ready to fire.
Excellent! And this Arca cannon you have built, quite a marvel, as I understand it. Indeed. From this moon, we can fire on any habitable territory in the Kaurava system. Do you wish to inspect it yourself? It harms only advanced life forms, thus avoiding damage to structures and plant life. This is indeed most commendable. Our orbital defenses were built using the same technology. Both are controlled from this location. What is that? The perimeter has somehow been breached. I must attend to this. Please, Your Excellence, return to the Coalition Center. Yes, that may be best. Dispatch Pathfinders, locate the source of the breach, and see that they do not gain entrance and establish a foothold. Notify all Fire Warriors and Krut Carnivore squads. Let us hope that our defenses are strong enough to hold them. Gun them down! Pick your targets!
incomplete fortifications of the Nan Yanoi moonbase had been constructed to withstand masses of invasion fleets and heavy weapons. In their many careful preparations, the Tau had not considered the sheer brutal speed of the Dark Eldar. Perhaps because previous encounters with the Dark Eldar had not left survivors for the Tau to learn from. Regardless, the attack was so swift and so overwhelming that many fire warriors did not have time to arm themselves and die nobly in combat. They would instead come to find themselves in a hell beyond imagining, in the torture cells of Lacune and Camorra. After the battle, Asdrubal Vect himself graced the scene of the conquered base and presided over the vile banquet held on the night of the victory, personally feasting on the heart of the dying ethereal. It was no secret that it was the warbus Gorguts himself who led the Wa in the Kaurava conflict. But who were the orcs he led? Imperial records indicate that these orcs had always been in Kaurava, going back at least a millennium. It seems that when Gorguts arrived, they welcomed him as a long-awaited hero. These rugged Koravan orcs had sometimes overrun the system's 4 planets, and sometimes been beaten back to their secret stronghold in the Rockclaw Mountains. There had never once been a successful attempt to breach the vast hideout there, and the orcs believed there never could be. But in the past, these orcs had always retreated to this place in great numbers at the first sign of defeat. Gorgut saw such behavior as un-orky. He insisted that you had to take a bolter round or 2 if you wanted to win. And Gorguts lived only to win. Gorgut's strategy meant that the orc stronghold was not invincible. But this did not mean that it was undefended. Reaching the lair was one thing. Penetrating its defenses was entirely another.
You see, Big Boss Gorgut, this here's the strongest and bestest orc horde has ever held an orc.
Oh, is that so then?
Ain't no Yumi's got in here ever. With the Rockclaw Mountains all round us, there's only one way in. Even if there was to get in, they'd have all the boys to face. Oh, and the knobs, and the tanks. Then there's the squig-offs.
Say they beat all that?
That's when we get them with the fighter bombers. We'd squash them to a pulp. We got watchers watching day and night. Nobody but an orc gets close to us without we see them and crush them to smithereens. Boss! Boss! There's enemies in the camp! What? In the camp? We gotta stop them before they gets to the killing spot. Them drums! Beat the drums! Get to them!
What's this here killing spot?
Beat the drums! We've got to hold the killing spot!
Bestest orc hold ever, huh?
Load!
I've had enough of this. Come on, boys. Let's get out of here.
The bumbling forays of the Orc armies had irritated Archon Tarrell one too many times, and he grew weary of their presence in his battlefield. It was without much difficulty that the Dark Eldar, keen of eye and ear, found the supposedly secret mountain fortress of the Calraven Orcs. The sheer number of these green brutes rendered the stronghold sack quite difficult, but Tarrell prevailed. Many Orc corpses festooned Raider and Ravager decks. Orcs in great number were taken as playthings for Tarrell, his homunculus Grumenhel, and as tribute to the elders of Komorah. Hellions and Reavers were sent through the narrow mountain passes to hunt Orcs that had fled. During all these proceedings, Lord Tarrell himself scoured the camp for his adversary, Gorguts, but in vain. The Archon had looked forward with great pleasure to personally eviscerating the Orc war boss. Still, they had sent him scurrying in fear, and that would surely suffice for now. The Blood Ravens had learned the value of speed and mobility through hard battlefield experience. Force Commander Boreal, who had studied under the famed Commander Angelos, sought to make his reliance on stationary defensive structures as small as possible. Therefore, rather than build up the Space Marines' Central Command, entire companies were reserved in the fleet above Kaurava II. These would be ready to deep strike with deadly speed into any territory, including the Blood Raven's own headquarters. If attacked by an enemy, drop pods would cover the Marine stronghold in a steely, thunderous hail, swarming the Space Marines' enemies with super soldiers and dreadnoughts. Force Commander Boreal was sure of his plan. His greatest weapon was, after all, the superiority of the Space Marines themselves. Who could weather such a rapid and devastating defensive tactic?
Commander Boreal, enemy forces in our perimeter.
Where?
Southern Quadrant, but they were on the move. Current location unknown.
There is no time to be lost. Battle, brothers! Space Marines, today the enemy is at our door. We know our duty and we will do it. We fight for our honor as Blood Ravens, as Space Marines, and we fight in the name of the Emperor. And if we die this day, we die in glory. We die heroes' deaths, but we shall not die. No, it is the enemy who will taste death and defeat. As you know, most of our battle brothers are stationed in space, prepared to deep strike. Our perimeter has been prepared in the event that our enemies should be so bold and so foolish. We have placed numerous beacons, allowing for multiple, simultaneous, and devastating defensive deep strikes. Codex Astartes names this maneuver Steel Rain. We will descend upon the foe. We will overwhelm them. We will leave none alive. Meanwhile, our ground forces will ensure the full defense of our headquarters. We are Space Marines. We are the Emperor's Fury. Failed. The Emperor.
The Dark Eldar fear, but many are the things they hate. In the eyes of the Archon Teril, these blood-raven space marines were a grand object of disgust. They stood for order and the upstart human race, and worst of all, claimed to be warriors second to none in the galaxy. To hate, the Archon added insult. The idea that any should be feared so much as his own Blackheart Cabal was a personal affront. The time had come to prove his superiority and punish the Blood Ravens for their offense of existing. Terrell was greatly pleased when he vanquished the famed soldiers, but was even more elated at how worthy an adversary the Space Marines proved. One can weary of docile playthings, but no Dark Eldar ever feels so alive as the moment when one stands victorious, having narrowly skirted defeat and death. The Archon considered it the greatest compliment to the slain Blood-Raven commander when he placed his severed, shrunken head on the upper tassel of his warbelt. The Battle of Solitude was a memory the Archon would cherish for many years to come. The Imperial Guard's headquarters in the Dusala precinct of the city planet of Kaurava 1 was also the system's primary Bane Blade production facility. Under the strong and capable leadership of the new Governor-General Vance Stubbs, the Guardsmen were once again well supplied, armed, and organized. Any attacker would find themselves facing a formidable amount of firepower. Since the outbreak of the Warp Storm on Kaurava 4, the Imperial Guard had known a humbling series of setbacks. Losing a full 3/4 of their fighting men was just a start. General Stubbs was determined to triumph in the face of this and all other adversity. Unfortunately, a full regiment of Baneblade tanks, the Guard's armored superweapon, had that very day been dispatched to various territories throughout the Kaurava system. The Dusala Precinct headquarters was thus left without a single Baneblade to its advantage. But they had their factories. Repair parts, munitions, and operating crews were moved via a system of convoys to the centrally located Mars pattern buildings, which produced the tanks. These convoys, then, were to be the Imperial Guard's weakest link, and also their greatest hope.
How are the men?
Tolerable, sir.
Morale?
Good at Central, poor in the front.
Casualties?
The same, sir.
Firing squads?
20 today, 12 for cowardice in the line of duty.
Baneblade production?
Tank crew, munitions and parts are arriving by convoy on schedule, sir. As you know, it takes only the most highly trained crew to properly operate a...
I know.
Very good, General.
How many do we have on hand?
Unfortunately, sir, a shipment of 100 Baneblades has just gone out to serve.
I see. Look at this. Once this was a fine city, gleaming beacon of the Emperor's light, a center of industry. Now look at it. Commissar, I would like to see this city built up again. I would like to see towers and spires of gleaming white. I would like to see our men on parade routes, not tours of duty. I would like to see every city in this planet, every colony in this besotted, miserable system turn to the service and industry of the Imperium in the Emperor's name.
In the Emperor's name, sir.
But to see my dreams fulfilled, first we must wipe the system clean of these blasted Xenos and heretics and monsters and zealots. And to do that, this base, our center of command, must operate free of danger or harassment. Our troops are ready. Our tanks and our sentinels. And if the Emperor wills it, we will have functioning Baneblades. Tell me, Commissar, are we prepared? Or will we be lambs taken to slaughter? Well, we'll do what we can and pray for victory. The enhanced Basilisk cannon has been prepared by our tech priest engineers, has it not? It can be fired at will.
Very good, General.
It only requires an artillery spotter. We shall place our faith in the God Emperor.
In the Emperor's name, sir.
That will have to do the job. As always, we place faith in the Emperor. All I fought for, all my work, crushed. Crushed! All the good men who gave their lives for this cursed, this blasted system! Though my army lies in ruins today, I have not done fighting, and I will remember who my enemies are.
The mind of Dark Eldar Archon Taril, the Imperial Guard, were a true conundrum. He thought of them as a burgeoning tree, hanging heavy with ripe fruit. And yet, the tree bore thorns, and the fruit was cased in hard shells. At last, the Archon had been pricked one too many times by those thorns. And the time had come to take his blade to the tree's trunk. The heavy armor and artillery of the Imperial Guard's Central Command were aggravating to Taril's forces. But with terror, poison, and savage speed, they crushed the Imperial Guard regiment. The job was well done. With the tree felled, its fruit were all close to the ground, and Taril could gather them with ease. Some they feasted on, and some they set aside for their masters. The Dark Eldar then turned their sights on victims with softer shells and fewer thorns. The Sisters of Battle rely greatly on their faith. It is their sustenance and their shield. When they first came to the tainted world of Kaurava, Confessor Turganum March was quick to see how much holy light and fire it would take to cleanse the 4 planets. He therefore brought the living Saint Anais and placed her in their primary bastion in Sama on Kaurava 1. Following a secret and ancient practice, the living saint was imbued with the inviolable aura, an aura of invincibility which would prevent any chance, he thought, of defeat. Guarded at the last by this inviolable aura, the Sisters of Battle marched with great surety. Who, in truth, would dare oppose them? What adversary could faith and fire not sweep from before them? In the face of chaos and vile aliens, the Sisters of Battle merely redoubled their fervent prayers and penances and fought on. They came to believe that glorious victory was the only outcome. The idea that any would dare attack their mighty bastion was unthinkable. The possibility that their bastion could fall beyond belief.
Good, she comes.
Sisters, the living holy saint of the Emperor, Saint Anais, scourge of heretics. Now, in the name of the Emperor!
Good.
There, it is done. May the Emperor's blessing carry us on to victory, sisters!
We thank you, honored martyr.
So... it is true, then. These blessed shrines will confer invincibility?
Indeed. Within each shrine lies a true and sacred relic of the ecclesiarchy. Now that the edifices have been blessed by a living saint, they confer upon her the inviolable aura, as scribed and fervently mastered by the great ecclesiarch Jonasiah Vuonis.
And wherever she goes, no harm may befall us?
Precisely. Neither our persons nor our belongings.
One pure bright candle amidst a sea of filth and darkness!
That is well said, Canoness. This is a tainted system. It may, in fact, be irredeemable.
Then we shall purge it with fire. I have yet to find a cinder that was not faithful in its praise of the Emperor. All is made ready? Yes, mistress. Good. These would-be conquerors shall have a taste of our fire and faith. The Emperor will punish them through us. Sisters, we must go as martyrs! We must go in flames! In flames!
From the moment that Archontaril's raiding force crossed into the Sama district, it was a contest of speed versus flame, of jagged and poisonous wickedness against stiff and narrow zeal. Unfortunately for the Sisters of Battle, the ruthless force with which the Dark Eldar struck them was simply too great. The marauders of the Blackheart Cabal were like a dark torrent crashing through the Imperial city, smashing the Sisterhood's battlements. The Dark Eldar swooped down on many of the Sisters of Battle with such speed that they had not time to make martyrs of themselves. Instead, they would become the slaves and playthings of the debased Dark Eldar. One lone Sister of Battle they tortured to the point of madness, then left, where she could someday strike fear into the hearts of others by muttering of the horrors she had seen. It may never be known what first awakened the cold legions of the Necron from their vast burial vaults in the southern coast of Kaurava III. Archives suggest that Imperial Guard survey crews may have been dispatched to coastal Emosa several months before the conflict. Others point to the strange and unknown influence of the warp storm, which could somehow have roused the deathless Necrons from their slumber. Out of the dry Emosan sands, an ancient complex emerged. Part burial ground, part power plant, part staging ground. As builder scarabs removed sands and restored structures to power, its clean-cut, symmetrical, and lifeless form emerged. It pulsed with the green glow of the strange power which fuels the Necrons. Vast reserves of it. Enough to drive an endless stream of monoliths and Necron soldiers. Anyone foolish enough to assail this unearthed necropolis would do well to heed that flow of energy. It is the source of the Necron's power, and if unchecked, there is little limit to what strength Necrons could marshal against their foes.
So, they come. Awake. I give you energy. Drink of it, and awake. They shall meet their ends. They shall join the army of death.
Although it was in a different age that they parted ways with their craft world relatives, the Dark Eldar had not forgotten the dark and bloody wars between their ancient kindred and the Necrons. The fiendish machines made poor victims of Dark Eldar piracy. They were always armed, and although their frames did encase souls, those were feeble and sour, and could not be tortured before reaping. Defeating the Necrons was a necessary and grim task. Although they took less joy in the endeavor, the Dark Eldar fought with no less ferocity. They danced and fired before their deathless foes with vicious abandon. The Necron legions could not stop them, and neither could the threat of the great monoliths. Not even the appearance of the Great Deceiver, summoned into corporeal form, could avert the Dark Eldar's victory. Alas, no celebrations followed. They took no slaves and pillaged no goods. Their duty done, Taril's forces fled the place in search of foes who could bleed and plead and cry out in pain. More than any other race, the Eldar concerned themselves with the distant past and the distant future. In visions, Farseer Keris anticipated the reawakening of their ancient foes, the Necrons and Kaurava III. A webway gate, unused for many millennia, flickered to life. In the blink of an eye, a barren tract of the wasteland planet became a sprawling base of operations, and the Eldar army poured forth from it. Just as quickly, this stronghold vanished from the naked eye, concealed by Eldar artifice. The Eldar had learned long ago that no bulwark, no matter how strong, could halt the slow, implacable progress of the Necrons. Only illusion, deceit, and misdirection could accomplish that goal. And these are things at which the Eldar are peerless. The Eldar had prepared a harrowing gauntlet for their invaders, with all the feints and deceptions they could muster. This stronghold was not just a foothold, not just a key strategic point, not just home to many Eldar secrets. No! Through its long history, it had become sacred to the craft world Eldar, and they would defend it accordingly.
They approach. We are prepared.
Yes, Farseer, but
Yes?
must we fight?
We shall fight. They must never suspect. They shall come, expecting the obvious, the simple, the artless. They shall stab at the shadows with confused minds and troubled hearts. Meanwhile, we shall appear unseen from 10 directions, and from every one, strike a fatal blow. Do you know the history of this place, which we call Esselir Talith and the young races call the Upper Wastes?
We, the Eldar, made our war camp here. In a past age.
Yes, that is so. Our ancestors came here to fight the Necrons when they were an overwhelming wave that swept the worlds. This system was one of their stages of destruction, their foundries of undeath. Our ancestors defeated them here. We constructed our war operations center here as an illusion. No brute army, no simple display of force could uncover its secrets, and none ever shall. No. It is more than an illusion. It is a clever trap, this place our ancestors forged. It is a net covered in leaves that the savage beast willingly stands on, tempted by a bloody morsel, only to find itself hoisted, trapped, at the hunter's mercy. No, we shall guard our secret. No force can strike a target it cannot find. We shall not yield up our foothold on this world. Karava was once ours, and shall be ours again. We came here long, long ago. We did battle with our deathless foes, the Necrons, and won. This day we have lost. If they swarm again like locusts here, some other must stop them. For we shall be gone.
Eldar do not easily forget. The dark branch of their kind, who many millennia ago had split from their craft-world cousins, still looked back on them with a kind of hatred that can only stem from personal betrayal. Since they had arrived in the system, Archon Taril had kept a wary eye on the doings of the Eldar Farseer. Debased by nature, he could not restrain himself for long against the provocations of this ancient hatred. When he felt he was strong enough, he and his bloodthirsty raiding band fell upon the Eldar stronghold of Esel-Ir Tanil, which the Imperium had named the Upper Wastes. Archon Taril and Farseer Kiris were pitted one against the other, speed for speed, trick for trick, evasion for evasion. But in the end, it was the Dark Eldar who struck the final blow. The wild pleasure that his warriors took in defiling the captured Eldar was far greater than it could have been for any other race. Of course, the bulk of hostages were reserved for tribute to Taril and his superiors. Yet, in spite of all his bounty, Taril was deeply pained to learn that Farseer Kiris had escaped and might never be made his personal plaything. Still, the victory was great, and would raise his standing among the Archons of the Black Heart Cabal. With the last major threat removed, the Dark Eldar were now free to roam through the Kalva system, pillaging and laying waste as they saw fit. Like gruesome locusts, the Black Heart Cabal darkened the skies with their vehicles, descending on territory after territory, laying claim to prisoners and other spoils. The speed and ravening hunger with which these raids were carried out was remarkable. Nothing could escape them. Nothing could outrun them. The keen senses of the Dark Eldar seemed to pierce all cover in search of their prey. It was not long before all Kaurava was stripped bare and devoid of life. Back on the moon of Lacune, cages grew full of captives, and more cages were built. Archon Taril and his master, Lord Vecht, sat and supped, goblets filled with the souls of their enemies. The homunculus Grumenael cackled gleefully over his victims. As the warp storm quietly disappeared, so too did the Dark Eldar vanish, returned to the webway to revel, then go in search of new, fresh worlds to pillage and enslave.